Hey, thanks for opening this video. So you are looking to invest in real estate properties in Jamaica. During this time, you have a few questions. Is it the right time to buy during a pandemic? How do I know? Well, I had an interview with Ms. Trishauna Hemmings-Wilks on Gospel Rock, and a lot of the questions that were fielded, I felt as though it could be shared with the masses. So if you find any value in this, please give me a thumbs up and just check out this interview. All right, before we go into that, if the first time you're here, my name is Ariel. I'm a real estate agent licensed in Jamaica, and I help my clients with buying, selling, renting commercial or residential properties here. So if you are someone are considering to buy or sell, give me a call, reach out to me. All right, you can get me at 876-553-4246, and let's make it happen. All right, I also post on Instagram. I have some information that I do post there as well. You can consider following me on Instagram. My handle is Ariel Your Realtor. I'll also link it in the description below, of course. And if you have that kind of interest in keeping abreast of what's happening in the local real estate market, you can also consider subscribing to my mailing list. I'll definitely put the link in the description. If you have any questions or concerns from what you've heard, or if you have any other questions, if it's triggered any form of conversation in your circle, throw it in the comments. I'll be sure to respond to each of them or look up. All right, so thanks again for sticking around, and check it out.
Today's topic: purchasing a home during a pandemic. Some people are a little bit iffy, a little bit hesitant. Is it a good time to buy a house? Should I wait it out? Should I wait and see? What should I do? Here to help with our discussion, we have online Ariel Menzie. Ariel, are you there? Ariel is a real estate consultant, and he's here to give us all the information that we need to know. Is it a good time to buy a house? Should we wait? Should we go ahead? Ariel, welcome to the Gospel Rock on Gospel JAFM.
Hi guys, good evening. Yeah man, I'm certainly here, and thank you guys for having me.
Thank you, Ariel. Now, as we started out, again, we are in the middle of a pandemic. So many things have changed. So many things are different. We have to go about things differently. And when it comes to buying a house, the question is it a good time to purchase a house?
All right. Well, it being a good time is dependent on each person individually. What I'll say is it's dependent on where you are financially. And let me kind of expound on that a little bit. As you understand, in a pandemic, some persons, depending on what kind of industry they're probably employed in, there may be kind of some level of uncertainty. So, for example, the person in the hotel industry, effectively, they're still kind of on a wait and see kind of list. So, persons like those, I would suggest to them to hold for a little while. There are some persons they still have their job, it's still going on, they still can provide those proof of funds, proof of income. It is a good time. Once you can get yourself pre-qualified, it is a good time. For persons looking to make an investment, they're getting that property to rent it out. It's always, this is a perfect time. Pandemics typically tend to offer windows of opportunity. So for those persons, you might find those properties come on the market for someone that's in a strange circumstance and really needs to fill some funds. It's a good time for you in that respect. So it's kind of assess your financial situation first to go.
So it all depends on where you fall financially.
Yeah, it does depend a bit on where you fall. So for some it's a perfect opportunity. For others, it's best to kind of just hold off and wait and see.
And that's always the case, right? In every situation, whatever your financial circumstance, that's how you're going to determine whether or not it's a good idea to move forward.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's also a part of why we encourage relationships. When you're doing these kind of transactions, you have to foster relationships. It's good to foster a relationship with a mortgage lender. It's good to foster a relationship with a good real estate professional. And again, in relationships as well, how they thrive is on communication. So, have that strong communication with your real estate professional. Boy, I'm in this industry, I'm really not sure, or, I'm in a pretty good position. What's the best suggestion for me? And it's a similar conversation you need to have with your mortgage lender. So they will suggest you, well, all right, we can qualify you for X amount. Let's move towards a property like this. So the conversation, the communication is very important as well.
Communication. We're going to touch on that shortly. But
yeah.
as we're speaking about depending on what your circumstance is, would you say is a market for the buyer or the seller? Who has the advantage in this market?
Who has the advantage? Sellers still have the advantage in this market. The thing about it, though the pandemic is affecting us, it has not affected Jamaica tremendously in the effect that the ratio of persons who have, you know, in a set SM lost their job as opposed to those who still can maintain work even in a on and off circumstance. The ratio is not bad. It's not pushing negatively to the fact that most persons are out of job. There are still a large percentage of us who still have jobs and can still function in the economy. So it still is leaning more towards the seller kind of having the upper hand. And they will have the upper hand as well because inventory is low. There are still a lot of persons who are interested in buying properties, but there is not enough properties on the market to satisfy that need. You know, so sellers still kind of have the upper hand here.
Demand and supply.
Demand and supply, yeah.
All right, now you touched on this a little bit earlier when you spoke of having an open communication with your realtor or someone in the business. What are the general requirements when seeking to purchase a home? What do you need? What are the things that you must get in place? If you don't have that, no, just wait. So what do you need to have now to go forward?
All right. So prime on that list is funds. You need to have access to money. You know, your mortgage lender will give you the bulk of it, but you have to put a stake in that property. So let's say maybe targeted, and for example, you need a deposit. Your deposit is typically 5 to 10% of the value of the property. You will need to come up with that. There are creative ways that you can do it, and again, important to have a real estate agent so they can kind of guide you. So NHC can probably give you some, depending on the kind of credit card you have, you might can get some there, depending on your insurance policy, you might can get some there, but generally you have to come up with that fund. So if you don't have a certain amount of funds available to you that you have ready access to, you know, at this point I'd say keep saving, keep putting some money down, because you need that closing cost, you need that deposit. Outside of that, you will also definitely need what is called a pre-qualification letter. So for most of us, you know, we have to depend on a mortgage lender. We may not have access to the ready cash to make a purchase of that magnitude. So in that case, what we would then ask, or suggest at least, is that you ensure that you speak with a mortgage lender for them to get you that pre-qualification letter. That's pretty much the money in your hand to prove to a seller that yes, I can afford this property. So you'll need that. You will also need standard things that you can get quick access to, like, you know, your proof of ID, your TRN, the proof of your current address, things like that. Some persons tend to wonder why they need a TRN and also your driver's license, but we know that information doesn't always displayed throughout different agencies in Jamaica land we love. So from time to time, there's going to come a point where you just might need it. So I always encourage persons, if you don't have it yet, go and get it. It's not entirely hard to get those things anymore. Just have it and put it down and make a copy because you need it.
Yeah.
So once you have those things, your real estate agent will work with you and present your offer to the seller. And, you know, all being well, you're good to go.
Okay. All right, Ariel. We're speaking to Ariel Menzie, trying to decipher whether or not it is in fact a good time to go ahead and make a house purchase. Is it a good time to buy a home? And Ariel is giving us quite a number of information. One of the things that you mentioned, Ariel, you spoke about having that initial deposit between 5 to 10%. And just to be clear, this is money that you need to have on your own. This is not something that you're going to get from a lender. You have to have this money packed away.
Yeah, man, that's definitely clear. So mortgage lenders, they're very motivated to give persons loans. You know, mortgages they won't necessarily stay, but if you think about in the grand scheme of things, mortgages are really one of the prime feeders into financial institutions. That's long-term money that they can quote unquote bank on.
Yeah.
So you know that's kind of the strength you walking into a mortgage company saying, I need a mortgage. That's kind of what you walk into. But again, they need to see that you have put some form of effort into the process. And that effort is, you know, the 10% deposit or the 5 to 10%. So, like my parents used to say to me, and I guess I never outlined it very clear. They always said, save, save, save. And I was like, save for what? I wanted to go park and enjoy myself and, spend money on the car and stuff like that. But when you come to the prospect of getting a home, you have to save. And that saving is targeted towards getting your deposit and also your closing costs, that's what you have to come up with individually.
All right. What would you say is one of the most common mistakes that people make when purchasing a home, and how can they avoid that? If there's any one thing that you think people usually, don't pay attention to.
All real estate professionals will tell you the common mistake or the common error that persons make is that they go hunting for a property without knowing what they can afford. So, they'll reach out to us from time to time and say, so I've been looking for properties, and, I want this property in Kingston 20, whatever. So we might say, the first question is, what's your budget? And they'll go, okay, maybe about 10 million. Okay, once you start the conversation that way, I know you haven't started at the right place. So the right place to start when you're house hunting is to get your pre-qualification letter. All right, because that pre-qualification letter is really the thing that tells you exactly what you can afford. What you can afford for a home is not based on what you think you have access to or what you believe your auntie can give you, because that's not something you can put to a seller and say, well, all right, I need it. And to maybe paint the image very clear. So let's say you and I go on the road and we find a place perfect. It has all the bells and whistles that you want, fine furnishings, there's a pool around the back, and it's close to work and everything. It's exactly what you're looking for. And the vendor says, all right, well, I'm selling this property for 15 million, let's just say. So they're going to ask, okay, so, show me your proof of funds. At that moment, you are going to say, okay, I don't have the proof of funds. Let me go call my mortgage lender and get it. And I can tell you, the mortgage lender is not going to be able to prepare it for you in 2 days. Very likely, if you like that property, at least 5 other people like it. So by the time you get that pre-qualification letter and come back, very likely it's gone.
So go to your mortgage lender before going.
Yes, start that process with the mortgage lender. Get your pre-qualification letter first, and that is what arms you to start hunting.
I see. All right, Ariel. What are your recommendations? What are your key recommendations for getting through this process as easy as possible? This is a big deal. It's not necessarily easy, but what do you recommend to just take one through the process?
All right. Well, key things. One, start saving early. 2, get that pre-qualification letter, of course, as soon as you can. 3, you need to assess your finances, like on a microscopic scale. And by microscopic scale, I mean before you go to a mortgage lender, you need to run your credit report. Understand and appreciate that you get one credit report free each year, and you should know what's on your credit report before that mortgage lender. Because if you go to that mortgage lender and your credit report is bad, or there is some unpaid things from 5 years ago and that's bad, that's going to set you back on a process that's already stringent on time. So review your finances, get a report, find out what's on that report, what is bad on the report, what is good on the report, and see how much you can maximize on what is good. So if you have bills or credit cards, especially, that's a pain point for many persons. Try to resolve that as soon as you can. If you can even take a year and get your finances aligned first, then do that. It takes a bit of time to put it all together, but it will save you the pain in the future.
And where do you get this credit report, Ariel?
You can get it from a few institutions. There is, what's the name of that property again? CRNF, I believe. You can Google it there. There are 2 institutions here, and Credit Info is one. Right, that's the name. Credit Info is one. They are in New Kingston. So they can actually just walk in their office with your ID or TRN. There you go with that TRN again. ID or TRN, which is like a proof of address, and they'll pull it. And it's something you can even get same time, depending on the payment process. and you get it and you go. And you know, if you need some help in understanding it, there are professionals there who can help.
Who can help?
Right.
All right, we're almost out of time, but I want to give you the opportunity rather, Ariel. Just relate to our listeners where you can be contacted, how you can be contacted, because you're in this business, you're an expert, and so persons may want to reach out to you to get more information. So let them know quickly where to reach you.
Okay, guys. Right, so I am pretty easy to find. My name is Ariel Menzie. You can find me, of course, on Instagram. My handle is Ariel Your Realtor. You can send me an email, arielyourrealtor@gmail.com. You can call me. Send me a WhatsApp at any time, 87246. That's 876-553-4246. You can check out my videos on YouTube. I try to empower us on YouTube as well with information.